So how long have you been working with Rolly?
Oh wow. Rolly just reminded me the other day, it's been 3 years.
3 years.
Been 3 years. People didn't know it first, but I was with him for 3 years. When he won his first interim title, I was with him.
So tell me, how is that experience like?
Different. And I'm gonna explain to you why, because one, that was my first time ever getting a chance to work with Rolly. What people don't realize, and I need the world to really understand this. Rolly went from fighting 6 round fights to a 12 round title fight. Not many people go from 6 rounds to 12 rounds.
No.
And if you go and watch that fight, that young man threw power punches for 12 damn rounds. Heat for 12 rounds. That's hard to do, bro. And so it was different because I got a guy I never really trained before, personality totally different than, some of the other guys I was dealing with, like Sean Porter and Badu Jack and, Caleb Plant. Those guys were already established and, already grown up in their maturity in the sport. And here's this kid who barely got over 10 fights and, he out here trying to make it happen. So his personality is totally different. He coming out there full of fire with bricks in both hands and letting the world know he ain't afraid of. So, so it's a totally different situation. But I was grateful because as unorthodox as he is, it made me appreciate his abilities and his skill set because he was different, and that made me even appreciate him more because he doesn't have to be like everyone else. Now, there's some things you work on, like defensively, that you have to work on to make sure that you're not exposed in areas. And but as far as trying to fight like everyone else, it wasn't that guy, and that made me like him more. And so he's definitely it hit the sport. He's good for the sport for a number of reasons. Everybody want to see people get knocked out. Everybody, that's why we tune in. And at the same time, he's a lot of fun. If you look at any of the pictures on our social media, you'll see us laughing and joking and talking shit. We're in camp. We're in the heat of camp talking, you know, because we just want to make it have fun, and the work is hard. We might as well make it fun.
Right, right. And I was listening to some of the interviews that were done today, saying that he's really serious about this fight, knowing that it's a title fight. There's room for keeping his personality and afloat when it's time to promote a fight. But this one specifically, at his first time at 140 pounds, he seems a lot more focused. What are the differences in this fight that you see in Rolly versus his past fight with Gervonta Davis and the other ones after that?
Well, he was serious about Gervonta. He really wanted that. I mean, even before the fight came up with Gervonta, he wanted that fight for a year before that fight came up. He wanted that. So he was focused. He got caught. Things happened. But when he came back from that, and this is what I always say with great athletes understand that sometimes shortcomings happen. But what makes them great isn't the fact that they have to understand it. What makes them great is being able to look at it and evolve from it. The best fight that Canelo ever had was with Floyd,
Hmm.
and he lost. And why is that the best fight? Because it taught him. It taught him a lot of things. It made him a much better fighter, which, in my opinion, is why he's one of the dominant top fighters in the history of the sport. But if he don't get that loss, maybe he's not the fighter he is today,
Hmm.
right? And those things happen, and the same thing, in my opinion, with Caleb. When Caleb lost to Canelo, it made him a better fighter. He showed that he's seen the experience in his upcoming fight after that with Darrell. He learned from it. And I think that happens to all great fighters. Just like I feel like with Rolly and Gervonta, he learned something. One of the things he learned is to have patience. If you go and watch that fight, he was chasing Gervonta all around the ring, chasing him,
Yeah.
and Gervonta made him pay for it. But at the same time, you're talking about a guy who had less than 15 fights and has been, expedited from 6 fights to 12 fights. I mean, 6 rounds to 12 rounds. He didn't have the experience that a Gervonta has with all the amateur experience, being this tall, to the amateurs now to being a grown man. He didn't have that experience, and then you put him in the biggest stage you could possibly be in, sell out the Barclays Center with one of the most dangerous fighters in the sport, and he put forth a hellacious effort. In my opinion, he was winning those rounds. Up to that point, I had him the majority winner of those rounds. But he walked away, he lost, and that's just part of the game, right? And the thing that I see now, I've seen a lot more patience out of him. I'm watching him be more defensively responsible. And that's what needed to happen for him to move on to the next phase of his career.
Right. Right. He's mentioned that, he's a big guy for the weight when he started at 135. He also called, Errol Spence at 47. Um, so we obviously see that his ceiling is, he's already thinking about becoming a welterweight. But at 140 pounds, do you believe that this is more of his like walk, not necessarily walk around weight, but more of his weight class?
I'm going to ask you to rephrase that because as you were speaking, you can't tell, but a plane just flew over me and I heard only half of that. So repeat some of that or rephrase it so I can understand it better.
I'll shorten it up. So at 140 pounds, do you believe that this is more of his weight class?
Um, I think based on how Rolly feels, he feels like it is. I felt like he could still work at 35,
Okay.
but for him, he feels like 40 is better. And this boxing game, it's not just about how physically fit you can get a guy. It's also how mentally confident the guy is. And if once a guy starts to make himself believe that this other weight is better for him, that other weight will be better for him because he believes it. So, in my opinion, I think he could have done 35 more, but he wanted to move up to 40. And if he said 47, he's already thought about the possibility of fighting someone at 47. And if we're going to be very honest about the sport itself, welter is one of those golden divisions.
Always has been.
It always has been welter and also heavyweight, right?
Right.
Those are the golden divisions. So every young fighter, I think, at some point to some degree aspires to get to that division and fight at that level. So I don't think Rolly's any different.
Right. You're completely for real, man. That's facts for sure. Now, he mentioned also that at 140 pounds, he would be more comfortable fighting a rematch with Gervonta Davis. He believes that circumstances could be changed in that fight at 140 pounds. When he mentions those things, what do you believe in that?
I believe he's right. I feel as if he's a better fighter now, not just based on the weight. Right? It's not just based on being 135. Like I said, you had a guy who had less than 15 fights. He didn't have the experience. He hadn't been in there with other world champions like Gervonta been in there with a number of world champions. And I don't mean not only in fights, but I've seen him in sparring with world champions. I've seen him in the ring with Sean Porter, and fighting. Sean's multi-world champion in the sport, and he was holding his own. And so that being said, it's a situation where experience can't be purchased. You can only get it by going through it. And Rolly went through it, and he did it on the biggest stage possible. Most guys freeze in those moments. Most guys, when the lights turn on, going from basically 6 rounders to 12 rounds, the next thing you know, you in the biggest world title fight you could be in, they freeze. Rolly didn't. He brought the heat to him. He just lost. So, with that being said, I think that it would be a better fight for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons is he's a better boxer now. He's more patient and he understands it. He
Mm.
understands it more.
So if Rolly becomes victorious this weekend, what are your accolades are looking at like then?
Somebody asked me that today and they were like, and I didn't even think about it. And they said, Coach, so what are your divisions you've won? Because one of my goals was to get a champion in every division, right? And I had to think about it. And I was like, I got one at 118, 126. Rolly was at 35. I don't have a 40. Got 47, 60, 68, 75, cruiser. So I've got a majority of those divisions, but I don't have a champion at 40. So he'll give me a championship at an area that I never had before. And I think that will be if he's able to pull this off, which I think he is, that'll be my 5th world title for the year and my 13th world title overall.
Yeah, that's quite a resume.